So I'm here to talk about IoT, and that is the Internet of Things. Traditionally, let's see if I can get this moving. Traditionally, when we thought about IoT, we might have started off with the real basic, the home. The Amazon Alexa or Echo, I'm sorry, Alexa is the trigger word. But basically, we're kind of at the point where IoT can be any number of things. So the IoT Internet of Things refers to the network of physical objects that are essentially connected by any number of technology, sensors, software, other technologies. The idea is these are all devices that are connected through some sort of technology. They exchange data with other devices and systems over the internet. So they collect data through multiple types of these existing technologies, and generally that data autonomously flows between other devices as well as to cloud storage. The earliest example of IoT that's been discussed is a Coca-Cola machine at a university that was connected to the internet that allowed the people that were managing it to document the inventory and temperatures. So something very, very simple back in 1982. In 1997, Kevin Ashton, a British technologist, began exploring RFID, which is, you've probably seen that term a lot in a lot of things nowadays, radio frequency identification, that would allow these devices to connect through microchips and wireless signals. And so in 1999, he essentially coined the phrase the Internet of Things. Within a few years, you started seeing a lot more devices, smartphones, cloud computing, advancements in processing power, and improved algorithms created this framework for collecting, storing, processing, sharing data among these different devices. It's estimated at this point there are almost 18 billion IoT devices worldwide, and that number is expected to double at least by 2030. I would anticipate that is a low estimate. This is just a kind of a basic depiction of the different kinds of IoT devices that you may see in your daily activity. So when you're home and you're commuting to the workplace and then commuting back home, you could encounter any number of these IoT devices. And we'll go over some of these, a list of these in a little bit. So IoT in criminal investigations, it's important to understand, and this is kind of an area that's being developed quite a bit at this point. Most data is most data that is generated from IoT devices is stored in the cloud. So if someone tells me, hey, I think that we might be able to get data from this device that might be relevant to this investigation, my first thought is going to be, okay, this device is connected to the cloud in some way, usually an app, especially with home IoT devices. And so I'm going to think, what app is that associated with? What manufacturer? And I'm going to look into getting the data that's been stored in the cloud for this device. There are some devices that have removable storage media. You might have like hidden cameras. We had a case once where there was an adapter that looked just like those little boxes that you plug in and you plug your USB cord into it to charge or something like that. And it had a hidden camera in it, and it had an onboard slot for a memory card, very small. So you might have that. A lot of devices, if you are able to tap into them, they might have activity logs. So again, this is just a general understanding of where that data is stored, and it's basically being researched, and that information is being developed every day. So since IoT is everywhere, essentially identifying relevant evidence that might be useful in a criminal investigation can have both challenges and opportunities. So some of the challenges, and this is consistent with digital evidence in general, is the volume, the vast number of devices. and they have varying operating systems, communication protocols, and data formats. So data from one device is going to look different when you get that from the service provider, or if you can tap into it from the device itself, is going to look different than other data from another device. And you may have tools, and they may be software tools that allow you to look at that data and maybe better understand and organize that data. And when you have the different data formats, that can be difficult for those tools to be able to process that data and put it into a readable form. So this diversity is one of the big challenges for IoT devices. Again, the sheer volume, the velocity and variety of this data can be overwhelming. New methodologies are constantly needing to be developed to address the vast scale of IoT data. And then because they transmit such significant amounts of personal and sensitive data, the potential for misuse or unauthorized access is also a concern in our privacy conscious world that we're in now. But some of the opportunities that we have is the ability to get that data from smart home devices that can provide insights into what happened during a criminal event or during a series of criminal events that we might not ordinarily have, because there may not have been witnesses there, or there may not have been reliable witnesses that are willing to talk. So being able to tap into that data can provide those insights that can lead to information about what happened, motivations, things like that. IoT devices also can capture data in real time, or they generally capture data in real time, creating that kind of context that you might need to be able to understand what happened and present it at trial. You'll see a lot of IoT in the news. Nabbed by the car. This is an article about a burglary, and they stole the suspect's vehicle and then connected their phones to that vehicle, which, fortunately, they don't always make smart choices and makes it easier for us to catch them. But IoT in a lot of these situations have allowed us to get information on a case, whether it's to inculpate someone or exculpate someone. So IoT devices span a number of different categories, and I don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to go through all of these. I will say you can see a wonderful paper on IoT, the SWIG-DE best practices for on-scene identification, seizure, and preservation of IoT devices is on the SWIG-DE website, which is swgde.org. If you look at this list, wearables, geolocation, even your pet tags, speakers, displays, all of these things, you could probably look at that list and say you've got at least one, if not multiple, from every category. Vehicles are also in that. Additional devices that are specific to law enforcement can be things like drones. We're seeing a lot more of that these days. We just had an article in Colorado come out about an agency using drones to respond to 911 calls so that they can get there faster than the officers maybe can.
You have 1 minute remaining.
License plate readers are a significant source of help in, certainly auto theft cases, but many cases to see where a vehicle was. Again, digital license plates that Chris talked about, body-worn cameras, and even traditional surveillance cameras can provide that helpful data. So in addition to the devices, when we're looking at the kind of data, it can be communications, it can be location data, photo, video, audio, both content and metadata, any number of readings, measurements, condition, were the lights turned on, were they off, usage and activity logs, and connected devices and accounts, which devices were connected and who accessed that account, who does it belong to. That can be very helpful in a criminal case. So these are just a couple examples of Fitbit wearables, where people wore a Fitbit. One was a victim where it showed that she was moving around for almost an hour after her husband claimed that she was killed by an intruder. And then in the last one, this individual was exonerated because the Fitbit data showed he was at home asleep when the real killer claimed he was holding a gun and forced him to commit the murder.